STEM Gentle Learners. Welcome to another Quarter 2 episode of Earth Science here in Senior High Tech TV. I am so happy that you are all here joining me to learn again today. I am your Earth Warrior buddy, Teacher Ernest, and together we will discover the wonderful world of Earth Science. If you are ready to learn, sit back and relax for another wonderful learning journey.
It's trivia time! Did you know that Philippines has many faults? One of these is the Marikina Valley Fault System that contains two major segments, the West Valley Fault and the East Valley Fault. The West Valley Fault, which is believed to impact the big one, is a dominantly right lateral strike-slip fault that extends from Dingalan, Aurora in the north and runs through the provinces of Nueva Ecija, Bulacan, Rodriguez Rizal, and the cities of Metro Manila, which include Quezon City, Marikina, Pasig, Makati, Parañaque, Taguig, and Muntinlupa, and the provinces of Laguna and Cavite that ends in Tagaytay.
Are you up for another amazing Earth Science adventure? Let's start! Before that, let's have an activity called Pit Tour. Here are the mechanics of the activity. Number 1, I will flash a statement together with a picture of a place. And number 2, guess the place in 5 seconds. Are you ready? Let's go!
Number 1, it is the longest mountain range in the Philippines. Is it Hamiguitan Mountain Range or is it Sierra Madre? If your answer is Sierra Madre, then you are correct. Sierra Madre, extending along the Pacific coast from northern to central Luzon, is the longest mountain range in the country. That range and the Cordillera Central merge in north-central Luzon to form the Caraballo Mountains. Number 2, it is the highest mountain range on Earth. Is it Himalayas or is it Transanta Mountains? Very good. The answer is Himalayas. Himalayas or Himalaya are a mountain range in Asia separating the plains of the Indian subcontinent from the Tibetan Plateau. The range has some of the planet's highest peak. Number 3, it is the longest fault on Earth. Is it Alpine Fault or is it San Andreas Fault? Excellent! The answer is San Andreas Fault. San Andreas Fault is a continental transform fault that extends roughly 1,000 kilometers or 750 miles through California. Number 4, it is the deepest ocean trench on Earth. Is it Tonga Trench or is it Marianas Trench? Very good. The answer is Marianas Trench. The Marianas Trench is located in the western Pacific Ocean, about 200 kilometers or 124 miles east of the Marianas Islands. It is the deepest oceanic trench on Earth.
Let us discuss this further, so stay focused and don't go away.
And for the learning competency, describe how rocks behave under different types of stress such as compression, pulling apart, and shearing. At the end of the lesson, you are expected to differentiate stress and strain. Describe the 3 types of stress experienced by rocks and determine the factors a rock responds to stress.
Hey, cheer up! Why are you looking so stressed? When people have too much stress, they tend to break. Rocks experience stress too, leading to the formation of panoramic mountain ranges, canyons, valleys, ridges, and other natural wonders. So conquer your stress and be like rocks. Rock on! In the past lesson, you have identified the different classification of rocks, as well as the rock cycle. In this lesson, you will gain a more comprehensive understanding on the behavior of rocks when confined under stresses.
Stresses on rocks have significantly changed the topography of the Earth, from the highest mountain ranges to the deepest oceanic ridges. The Earth is dynamic. Investigating these processes helps Earth scientists not only to understand how ancient continents moved and collided to build mountains in the past, but also to predict where earthquakes may be about to happen in areas where mountains are forming today. So long as there is heat inside the Earth and this heat remains unevenly distributed, the plates will go on moving and the face of the Earth will keep on changing. Many of these changes, however, takes place so slowly that they can hardly be observed within the span of human lifetime.
Stress is defined as a force applied over an area. In other words, it is the amount of pressure applied on rocks. There are three kinds of stress experienced by rocks. Number one is the tension stress.
Tension stress act in opposite directions, pulling rock apart or breaking it. This happens at the divergent plate boundaries where tectonic plates move apart. A ridge like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge is formed when two tectonic plates pull apart from each other.
Number two is the compression stress.
Compression stress act toward each other, pushing or squeezing rock together, causing them to fold or fracture or break. This happens at the convergent plate boundaries where tectonic plates collide. A mountain range like the Rocky Mountains is formed when two tectonic plates are pressed together.
And number three is the shear stress.
Shear stress may act toward or away from each other, but they do so along different lines of action, causing rock to twist and tear. This happens at the transform plate boundaries. The San Andreas Fault is an example because one tectonic plate is pulling one way and the other is pulling the other way.
Rock deformation in response to stressful strain. The different types of strain are as follows. Number 1. Elastic strain.
The rock returns to its original shape when the stress is removed.
Number 2. Plastic or ductile strain.
The rock does not return to its original shape when the stress is removed. At the Earth's surface, rocks usually break quite quickly, but deeper in the crust, where temperatures and pressures are higher, rocks are more likely to deform plastically. Stress applied over time often leads to plastic deformation.
When rocks deform in a ductile manner, instead of fracturing to form fold or joints, they may bend or fold, and the resulting structures are called folds. Folds are promoted by high temperature and pressure at great depth.
There are several kinds of folds.
Number 1 is the monocline.
A monocline is a simple bend in the rock layers so that they are no longer horizontal.
Number 2 is the anticline.
An anticline is a fold that arches upward. The rocks dip away from the center of the fold. The oldest rocks are at the center of an anticline and the youngest are draped over them.
And number 3 is the syncline.
A syncline is a fold that bends downward. The rocks curve down to a center. In a syncline, The youngest rocks are at the center and the oldest are at the outside.
And the number 3 types of strain is fracture or brittle deformation.
The rock breaks. Brittle rocks tend to fracture when rock is subjected to compressional or tensional stresses. The breaking of rock is due to low pressure and temperature that are experienced near the Earth's surface. Such irregular cracks can produce fractures such as joints and faults. A rock under enough stress will fracture. If there is no movement on either side of a fracture, the fracture is called a joint. If the block of rock on one or both sides of a fracture move, the fracture is called a fault. Faults are extremely long and deep break or a large crack on a rock. This fault is a result of continuous pulling and pushing. Sudden motions along faults cause rock to break and move suddenly. The energy release is an earthquake.
Earth scientists use the angle of the fault with respect to the surface, known as the dip, and the direction of slip along the fault to classify faults. The following are the types of faults. Letter A is the deep slip fault.
Deep slip faults occur when brittle rocks are stretched, tensional forces are involved, and the movement of blocks of rock is mainly in the vertical direction, sinking and rising. For deep slip faults, the block lying on top of the fault surface is referred to as the hanging wall, while the one below is referred as the footwall.
There are 2 types of a deep slip fault. Number 1 is the normal fault.
Normal fault where the crust is being pulled apart, in which the overlying or the hanging wall block moves down with respect to the lower or the footwall block.
Number 2 is the reverse or thrust fault.
Reverse or thrust fault is where the crust is being compressed, in which the hanging wall block moves up and over the footwall block.
The letter B type of fault is the strike-slip fault.
Strike-slip faults occur when the brittle rocks are sheared and the movement of blocks of rocks is chiefly in the horizontal direction. If the block of the far side of the fault moves to the left, the fault is called left lateral. If the block on the far side moves to the right, the fault is called right lateral.
The following correlations can be made between types of stress on Earth, and the type of fault is likely to result. Tension stress leads to normal faults. Compression stress leads to reverse or thrust faults. Horizontal or shear stress will lead to strike-slip faults. A rock response to stress depends on the following factors. Number 1 is composition or rock type.
Some minerals such as quartz tend to be brittle and are thus more likely to break under stress. Other minerals such as calcite, clay, and mica tend to be ductile and can undergo much plastic deformation. In addition, the presence of water in rock tends to make it more ductile and less brittle.
Number 2 is temperature.
Rocks become softer or more ductile at higher temperature. Rocks at mantle and core temperatures are ductile and will not fracture under the stresses that occur deep within the earth. The crust and to some extent the lithosphere are cold enough to fracture if the stress is high enough.
Number 3 is lithostatic pressure.
The deeper in the earth a rock is, the higher the lithostatic pressure. It is subjected to high lithostatic pressure reduces the possibility of a fracture because the high pressure closes fractures before they can form or spread.
And number 4 is strain rate or length of time.
The faster a rock being strained, the greater its chance of fracturing. Even brittle rocks and minerals such as quartz or a layer of cold basalt at the Earth's surface can undergo ductile deformation if the strain rate is slow enough.
Now, we have already learned that rocks undergo deformation. Let us see if you really understood our lesson by doing this activity called Guess What? I will show you a picture and your task is to identify the correct answer to a given choices. Bring out your pen and your quiz notebook and let's begin. Are you ready?
Picture number 1. Is it tension stress or is it compression stress? If your answer is compression stress, then you are correct. Picture number 2. Is it shear stress or is it tension stress? Excellent! The answer is shear stress. Picture number 3. Is it anticline or is it syncline? You're right. The answer is anticline. Picture number 4. Is it monocline or is it syncline? Very good. The correct answer is syncline. Picture number 5. Is it strike slip fault or is it reverse fault? Very good. The correct answer is reverse fault. To sum up, deformation histories help us also to remodel the nature of the forces which are related to the formation. Furthermore, an essential importance of structural geology is to know areas that contain folds and faults because they can form traps in which the accumulation and concentration of fluids such as oil and natural gas occur.
Congratulations, my dear STEM Legend learners! Hope that you learned a lot today. Once again, I'm your energetic teacher saying, eagerness to learn will lead you in the fulfillment of your dreams. See you in the next episode.